Who cares? Let's do the show.
Yeah.
I'm game. I got nothing better to do. Hello and welcome to Biscuit, episode number 29. This is your weekly scary podcast for the month of October. I am RJ Velosky. With me, as always, Jacob Gamble, looking up pointless crap on the internet nobody cares about.
It was called Running Wild. I love you, Will Arnett. Wait, what?
And TJ Rathburn, Will Arnett himself.
No outbursts.
All right. So, yeah, we got a little bit to talk about this week. It's in more of our, I guess you could say, normal vein, where we kind of talk about some geek news. New York City Comic-Con is a thing that happened. Some fun stuff came out of that. For me in particular, it's the Jessica Jones panels, the new Daredevil teaser for Season 2 came out. Although I was a little disappointed because I didn't watch it when it was leaked. I watched it when they officially released it on Monday. When we're recording this, so today-ish, whatever time is a thing. And it was mostly clips from Season 2 with, like, you know, the punchlines or the punches from reviews saying this is like the best effing show you'll ever watch, which, fair enough.
It's
it
true.
Is. But
for
there
those
was like
of us that will ever watch it.
Yes.
I will. I swear. Before
you watched that Will Arnett show, but you won't watch it.
I watched the entire run of Running Wild. Okay.
All right.
It was a thing for just a minute. I enjoyed it. Will Arnett has not done anything bad in my mind. So.
Well, I do love Will Arnett, but I would not go that far. Let's Go to Prison comes to mind off the top of my head.
Wait, I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's a movie he did where he went to jail or something. Anyway, I watched it. I did not enjoy it all that much. But back to Daredevil. Right, so the teaser for Season 2 actually amounted to like 5 or 10 seconds at the end of this thing. But you did get to see the Punisher and you did get to see Elektra. So, yeah, that's exciting.
Really? Mm-hmm. I need to watch this now.
Not now. We're doing a damn show. I am going to take your goddamn internet away, Jay.
Then how do I do a Skype call?
You'll come over here.
Your phone.
I'll still watch it on my phone. My phone is
all right
like that.
No, what else though? There was some fun stuff you guys were talking about.
The Killing Joke.
Yeah.
Becoming animated.
And possibly rated R.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, because we've known about the Killing Joke as an animated thing for a while now, but there was some hints that it could possibly be rated R, although the person they were talking to in the panel that gave the hint later came back and said, you guys are going nuts. I said, it's possible. We don't have a rating yet, and I have no idea or any control over what it's going to be, but rated R animated Batman. We've never had a rated R live action Batman. I thought that was kind of interesting.
It's going to be sweet.
Yeah.
The other thing I remember is the cast of Firefly was there, with the exception of Summer Glau and one other, but they like more or less begged and pleaded for a potential reunion thing, which is obviously never going to happen, but it got a lot of people's hopes up, including mine.
It still boggles my mind that Fox is all like, yeah, we're not going to do this.
Yeah.
It's a logistics thing at this point, though. I mean, it's been like 10 years since the movie, for God's sake.
Right, and I'm not talking like a new series, just a something. Like, does anybody remember when reunion episodes were everywhere? Like,
yes.
You know, Return to the Gilligan's Island, or like...
Well, they did do a Firefly reunion thing where they ran all of the episodes and had the cast there at a little table in a dark room and sitting around talking about the episodes.
Which is a fun thing for a convention, but it's nowhere near the logistics.
No, that wasn't actually at the convention. That was done that was done on television. That was done by Fox for their anniversary or something like that. 15-year anniversary, something like that.
Okay.
And it was terrible. It was bad because it just
the closest you're gonna get to Firefly revivals are the periodic Malcolm Reynolds references on Castle.
On Castle.
Yeah. But
weren't you a space cowboy last year? I like the costume.
All right. So that was the thing. Yeah, that was about it for me. Anything else for you guys stand out for me? Like I said, it was Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Daredevil, Marvel Cinematic on Netflix, baby.
The things that I saw that were really interesting were like some of the cosplay. There was a dude who did a 9.5 foot tall Hulkbuster Iron Man armor that was ridiculous. Like,
well, 9.5 foot tall would have to be ridiculous.
It was 1,600 man hours to put it together. It weighed 95 pounds. Like, big deal, and it looked incredible. And then there were other people there with him that were cosplaying as other Avengers, and I don't know how these people do it sometimes.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, especially when you consider the actual film version of all this crap is 99% CGI anymore. It's the cosplayers are more into practical effects than Hollywood.
Yeah.
But so it was a pretty cool thing. I was reminded of the discussion we had a few months ago around SDCC when the Daredevil trailer was leaked and all that, and they ended up releasing it the next day. I don't know how much we want to revisit that other than to say I think it's obvious at this point when a studio releases something at a major convention, they better have a plan in place to just release it to the public, because I don't think anybody's going to buy it anymore. Well, it's like, it was leaked, so now you knew it was going to be leaked because you put it at a convention. But anyway,
and Marvel was prepared for that, unlike DC at San Diego, where they just decided to say shame on you and all that other garbage.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to our main topic then this week, and we wanted to build, as we usually do, on our no particular order list, which this week were the top 5 spookiest, scariest, creepiest stories, and it was actually TJ's idea to expand on this, so I'll let him get it started here in terms of like evolution of creepypasta, viral nature of being scared.
Yeah. Okay, so anything that is particularly good at evoking an emotion is the sort of thing that we tend to make go viral, that you share on the internet, and a lot of times based off of the kind of social networks that we find ourselves in, it's the things that are like really cute usually, because it's the sort of stuff that your mom posts on her Facebook and you see it. But it's just as easy, if you look in the right areas, to find people sharing the things that scare them, and it's really fascinating to me watching this evolution from an oral tradition that we used to have as human beings, as storytellers, like sitting around a fire telling scary stories, and watching it change over the years, like the things that we used to be afraid of versus the things that we're afraid of now, and watching it change from the oral tradition around the campfire to the urban legends of the mid 20th century and beyond, and now what is frequently referred to as creepypastas, which came from 4chan, which is a terrible, vile place.
Yes. And, which is why I still hate the term creepypasta, by the way, but you have to deal with it.
Yep. Which was an offshoot of the term copypasta, which is any story that gets copied and pasted repeatedly to various threads. And if they're creepy, then they became creepypasta. And it's really fascinating to me watching this kind of evolution of storytelling, because I think that stories are one of the things that make us human beings, our capacity to tell stories and to be able to empathize and put ourselves into other people's shoes or into imaginary people's shoes. That's the sort of thing that really gets me interested in a lot of things. Does anybody else?
Well, right. So here's no, that's fine.
I was appreciating the thing. I did not know where the creepypasta thing came from. I just actually learned that one. Sure. Some of this stuff was new to me, but yeah, he was talking about the tradition of the moving from a campfire to the light of a computer screen and the transition that's been made. It's one of those things that, and the stories have made transitions
So
as well, but
Jay,
things that are scarier.
on that
But
regard, I have a question for you, because the modern proliferation methods of stories, as TJ touched upon, has changed with technology, social media sharing, all that. And what we're seeing with scary stories on the internet, I'm still not going to say that word because I hate it, is an old tradition being expounded upon with modern technological practices. So, Jay, my question is, what was the ancient precursor to keyboard cat?
what, keyboard cat? I don't know.
I mean, that's actually the first question that came to my mind while I was listening to TJ talk about that. And it's an interesting thing, an interesting way to approach the subject. Scary stories are a tradition that go back, storytelling in general, but particularly scary stories. But a lot of what you see on the internet now is fluff. It's minions. It's cats in hats. And
Minions and Greys and
yeah,
TJ's Wall flooded
well,
with them.
but it in some ways, I think maybe that's just a replacement for, or maybe not a replacement, but an evolution of small talk and talking in trivial ways about things that don't matter for a sense of community. I don't know. That's my take on it. It's completely tangential, I guess. But
I can get behind that. I mean,
but more to the point with scary stories, do you find, either of you, because you seek them out more than I do, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Do you find anything particularly different between creepypastas? I said it, and the stories,
tales,
well, campfire tales, stories you read as a kid, that sort of thing.
The transition, and actually that's where I started to go when you cut me off, was the transition between classic slasher, the guy with the hook and the guy with the hook hand, things like that, versus now where it's much more psychological. I mean, it's to a certain extent. You don't think so?
No, I think you're right, but it actually brings a really interesting point up to me, or it sparked a thought in my head. It's about, and this is just, I'm going to make this as a statement because I'm so confident, but I think it's about where teenagers congregate. Like the old stories that we heard when we were kids, like,
Bingo.
the teenagers are like necking in the car at makeout point, and then you hear the scratching, and then they eventually leave, and there's the hook hanging from the handle. Like, it's all about, like, this is where kids or young people were, and so that's what was scary. And so a lot of the things now with creepypastas are all based around all based around technology, because that's how kids connect today. It's all about weird corrupted video games or files that you find online or things like that, because that's where kids are. That's where they feel vulnerable. And like, I want to kind of go on a tangent about the tying it into the budding sexuality of young people, going from making out in a 57 Chevy to sexting one another. Like, fear and sex tie into one another really easily, and that's why there's a lot of with creepypastas in particular, there's a lot of them out there about like sexuality, about like looking for pornography on the internet and finding something terrifying, like that sort of thing. Like, it all melds together in the same sort of way the old fairy tales used to be scary, but aimed at teaching children how to move through adolescence into adulthood.
Yeah, in earlier stages of the development of civilization, the perhaps greater fear was that your parents would die, or one of your parents would die, and you would have nowhere to eat, or there would not be enough food to eat, and they would leave you in the woods, and
you'd find a gingerbread house. Is
yeah.
this where you're going with that?
Well, yeah, I mean that's.
Well, I mean, fairy tales are all allegorical.
Yeah.
Like
right.
that's...
what I'm talking about though, that's an
Grimm's
example, but what I'm talking
were...
about is exactly what TJ's saying. Scary stories have always been about what scares us, and what scares us is a byproduct of our stage of development and civilization. It's demonstrably so, absolutely.
I can get behind that. I
you can get behind a lot of things. You're pretty good at that.
Oh wow. There's one for this episode.
Yep.
So,
and
wait, no, because did I make? Nope, that
No,
was
I think
MPO. That was MPO that
Yeah.
I made the reference. So
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say was that I appreciate, because of the fact that I was a tech-oriented child, the transition actually to this tech-oriented stuff is actually much more scary to me than the hook hand guy or anything else, just simply based on the fact that tech is what I knew. And at the same time, it's... Yeah, I lost my train of thought just thinking about things.
thinking about dudes.
No, two? Really? Two?
Yeah, well, we've been slacking lately.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. We only did one horrible joke at your expense in the last episode. So.
Yes. Yep.
Gotta make amends. All right.
But yeah, and I think that's true for all of us as well, what you're saying in terms of having grown up in this generation that saw the massive transition of like the late 90s and early 2000s to where we are now from where we were in our childhood in the 80s and early 90s. So
it's really interesting to me because the more tech-oriented scary stories are all about just like, I saw this weird thing. Like, other scary stories had a much more, like, visceral, physical component. These were people that were actually in danger from the escaped madman with the hook hand or whatever. As opposed to now, when it's all about corrupting your mind as opposed to endangering your body.
And I was getting it. I actually there was one of the trains of thoughts I cannot speak today.
Trains of thoughts. No, yes. Just trains of thought.
Trains of thoughts.
No, never mind. What were you going to say?
But no, it was the start of one that got derailed, where things have become much more psychological, much more this had an effect on me as a physical thing versus, oh my goodness, there's a killer out loose in the woods. And it's still like the jump scare thing and stuff like that is still great, but what the world has, or what the tech world can potentially do to your mind, is more terrifying than anything else to me.
Well, speaking as someone with experience that I know some of our viewers share, talking to you, Raven, there are some people out there that have really taken this to another level. The amount of basic tech support calls that you will field where people are absolutely delusionally convinced that they were important enough to be hacked, or they are being tracked, or they're being It's it speaks to the pervasiveness that urban legends have always had, and now how that's being played out with the proliferation of technology that people use but don't really understand. And I think the lack of understanding is at the core of pretty much every fear you can name. So there you go.
I can agree with
any
that.
Any other tangents, any other thoughts on this topic, or are we ready to wrap this show up?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of ways you can take it, but unless we wanted to get into a really in-depth sort of philosophical conversation on it, I
I'm
think that this
game.
is
I got nothing better to do.
well, I mean, how much do we want to delve into the part that I want to really go back to and get into is the things that we're afraid of now versus the things that we're afraid of then.
Okay.
And also how much we've bastardized the things that we were afraid of then. Like a lot of the traditional horror tropes are now used as like romantic leads for young adult fiction.
Sure.
You know, there's there's vampires and werewolves in Twilight. There was a zombie movie, Warm Bodies.
Yeah, Warm Bodies.
About sexy zombies.
To be fair, I think that was also based on a book by that god awful author of Twilight.
Was it?
Yeah.
No, that was the host you're thinking of.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
That was, yeah.
Never mind.
But it's really interesting to me, like how it's almost a more direct representation of how the things that we used to be afraid of have almost literally and figuratively lost their teeth. You know, none of the stuff that people found terrifying back in the day, which were scary for reasons that are lost now, I think, because of the way we water down stories. Like all of our stories, especially like we talked about fairy tales being this in particular, but horror stories, like scary stories, are just a darker genre of fairy tale. And they're all allegorical. And I think we've reached a point where some of the allegories that were tied into like vampires and werewolves and such aren't understood anymore. And that actually kind of scares me. The fact that people don't understand the underlying human fears underneath these creatures and dismiss them as no longer being scary or use them in different ways. And obviously, I'm not going to fault people for putting new twists on old stories, but like there's a reason why vampires were scary and why werewolves were scary, why they have been for thousands of years.
I do get your point on that, but I have to say I don't know if it's necessarily an abandoning of the underlying themes that make those things scary. I think in a lot of ways it's just the mere exposure effect. They've just been over desensitization, and oversaturation.
Because some of the things that were scary then that still hold true now. Being Buried Alive is a great example. It's one of those things that hasn't been, aside from a very bad Ryan Reynolds movie, there just really hasn't been touched on because there's really nothing to do with it, and thus it still scares the hell out of me. I mean,
it's also, that one's also less allegorical. Like everybody would be afraid of being buried alive. Like that's just pretty unfortunate. You're gonna have a bad day.
Okay. So let's take an example here. Let's take werewolves. All right, and let's try to drill down to the core of what historically has made werewolves so terrifying. I would submit it's something that I've even mentioned in the past week that we've been doing this, the subversion of the self into something far more sinister and primal.
That's a part of it. And I think also werewolves tended to be an allegory for anger and for insanity.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And those are things that we should be afraid of. And
are we not, though, or are we just not afraid of werewolves? That's my question.
Well, you look at it, and there are lots of things that are supposed to be an allegory for those things. In nerd culture in particular, The Incredible Hulk is supposed to be about that same base fear of everybody, every human being has gotten that angry. The anger where when you're done, you're terrified of what you could have done or ashamed of what you actually did. And that's what makes those archetypes scary, because it's something that is universal within us. And I think that that's not something that really goes away. Like, that's not a type of fear that does. If we'd have tapped into other archetypes, like, say, vampires, vampires are very much about greed and about sexuality and about hunger. And sexuality, as society has evolved, has fallen out of being something we're afraid of and something that we embrace. And greed was something that, especially in America, was something we are way not afraid of and we totally embrace. And so a lot of the things that initially made them scary now make them appealing.
Yeah, I don't know if I buy that, and that it goes direct. I mean, this is a good conversation to have, but I don't know if I agree entirely with your point there, because I think that you do still see examples of the underlying fears, the underlying negative attributes that scare us, the negative aspects of humanity, because that's what this boils down to: the bestial, the anger, the greed, the avarice. These are still explored in horror and also in cautionary tales. I mean, yes, greed is good has been the motto in a lot of ways, by in the push for unrestrained capitalism in American politics. However, the phrase "greed is good" itself comes from a satirical character, and you, as far as the points of sexuality becoming far more open and acceptable, and that is absolutely true, but it's still not universal, and I still think there are a lot of things out there that will engage with that fear, maybe not necessarily directly with vampires or some of the more common archetypes, but
when was the last time somebody was afraid of, like, a succubus?
Well, yeah, I mean, succubi have never really been a prolific symbol, but
TJ is afraid of incubus.
Yeah,
I was gonna say that. That band.
I wasn't talking about the band, but yeah.
You're okay,
yeah. I slid. I 3.
No, well,
one not in my direction.
There you go. All right.
Wait,
oh no, I can definitely see where you're coming from, though. It makes it a good conversation. And yeah, I still, though, for me, I still think it's more the mere exposure effect of the particular symbols, if you will.
Right.
I did just start, because it's on Netflix now. I started watching iZombie, and I've read some of the comics. I haven't read the entire series, but I've read like the first 10 or 12 in the comic series. And although the TV show approaches it in very different ways, and there is that level of just kind of making a lot of the more common tropes into more of a jokey thing, it's still an exploration of some of the underlying themes of hunger, of alienation, and these different type of things that have historically been a core underpinning of what makes them so scary. I think they're just being explored in different ways. And I've only watched a few episodes of the TV show so far, though. I prefer the comic, just for the record. But it also doesn't help. It just has marketing all over it. The comic iZombie was iZombie in the Asimovian sense of iRobot.
Right.
The TV show is iZombie, like a goddamn iPod, and that just pisses me off. But anyway, all right.
The lowercase I, as opposed to that's the thing that turned me off to the show altogether, was just
right. And me too initially, and then I read the comics and I decided to give the show a chance, because it should have stuck. It should have stuck with that initial interpretation of the phrase iZombie, because it is, in a lot of ways, a meditation on the sense of self in extraordinary circumstances. And anyway, I don't want to be the guy that's talking extensively about stuff that other people in the room haven't necessarily engaged in, but
you want to talk about Daredevil some more?
Really? I'll watch it, I swear. I might have this weekend off someday.
Right. Someday. Well, as Creedence Clearwater Revival said, someday never comes. But
Not the truth.
All right. Any final notes? I think I've said my piece.
I think we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna say one thing real quick in regards to American Horror Story. New season the new season is back to what season 1 and season 2 were.
So still mediocre?
No, dude. Wow, really? I like it. Watch it, and yeah, it's twisted.
I watched that show for one reason, and it was not that show.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I didn't think we wanted to talk about that on the show too much.
I was just gonna say, wait, when we're supposed to not talk
so
about
let's get out of here.
But we do want to talk about.
Oh, did you get some comments? Yes.
We have comments.
We had a top 5 list on our last week's top 5 show.
All right. Do you have it up?
I'm pulling it up right now, so somebody cover for me.
All right, let's vamp, Jay. Like vampires, we will vamp.
Yeah, did either of you watch Walking Dead?
No, I haven't gotten to it.
No, I'm still comics only on that pretty much. But
wait a minute, where are the comments?
They disappeared. No, there's a creepypasta for you.
The disappearing comments?
Yes.
Maybe it wasn't actually on YouTube. Maybe it was on my Facebook.
I'm pretty sure it was on Facebook.
Because Raven left it, and I swear it was on...
I haven't seen one from Raven, so...
All right. Well, we are going to pause then.
No, we're not.
Wow.
No,
and
we're not.
we'll be back with the magic of technology as soon as we found the comments. So... Okay, we're back. Us hallmarks of preparedness. It's why we have it's why we have so many subscribers. We are so on the ball with this show.
Yep.
But thanks for bearing with us through that jump cut, and we now have our top 5 list from Raven.
Raven 575. Am I reading this, TJ, or did
you got it up?
Okay, all right. Number 5 on his list, in no particular order, is Pinhead's origin story at the beginning of Hellraiser 2. That scene in Teeth. You know which one. Human sacrifice scene from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which does still creep me out now that
Kalima!
Wow, yeah, I hadn't even thought about that one. Jeff Goldblum removing the fingernails and teeth in The Fly. And yes, I talked about this. Fingernails, teeth, anything. Yeah. Okay, and last up really doesn't... Well, the second one creeps me out. This one is tied. All of the Human Centipede and a Serbian film.
No.
No, to which one?
Serbian film. I haven't watched Centipede.
No.
Yeah.
I haven't even watched Serbian film. I just read what happens in it.
I think I started it, and I read what happened when, I have to see this, started it, and no. It was a whole lot of nope. Human Centipede really didn't do it for me.
Right.
The concept is terrifying. I mean,
and then it turned out very shortly thereafter that that's how you get your biome back in order if you're having trouble with your digestive tract, is to have
not in that direction though.
Sort of way.
Not in that direction.
This is a roundabout.
It goes up, not down.
No, actually, it goes down, but it's in. Yeah, well.
It did. Okay, now
I
this
assumed it was
inserted.
No, this is terror.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Raven, for the list. Any of you guys want to leave your lists on no particular order, we will go through them up until we have too many that we have to pick and choose. And if you have any thoughts on the conversation we were having here, what's really happened with the old themes of horror or anything else, let us know, and we'll talk about that next week. But for now, we're going to get out of here. For Jacob Gamble, for TJ Rathburn, I am RJ Velosky, and we will see you next week. Bye-bye.